3, 2, 1. Good afternoon, everybody. This is Aru from Plunge here in Whangarei, New Zealand. We're grateful to have Ryan K. Green join us today. He is a Kiwi creator, comic book artist, and writer. We also have my co-host, Shane Evans, who just released his comic last month, and we'll have him talk a bit about that, and then we'll get back to Ryan and talk about what he's been up to, his background, his inspirations. I got to enjoy a bit of knowledge and a bit of a read of this awesome book, which was part of the release this from the Funtime comics. And I'm so excited that a couple of them were in here. And I thought I had all of them, but nope, only have a couple of them. Usually I like to get the originals if I can, and it was great to see that they're in that collection. So if you haven't got this 27 to 28, 29, and then the next one after that, you'll be able to get the Sophie and Gil story, or you can buy directly these ones here from Ryan, and he will tell us all about that soon. So thank you for joining us at PlungeCast. We do this every couple of weeks as a fortnightly basis. We had a break last month because we had our own Plunge convention here in Whangarei.
Right.
Both Shane and I are involved in and trying to get local artists and creatives in our area, which is Northland, promote their own stuff, come and show what they're doing from something like jewelry all the way to painting to comic books to artwork and all that stuff. And it's something that I've been really passionate about for a long time. And we just keep going and building on that. So without further ado, I'll let Ryan introduce himself, quick bio, and then Shane can do a bit about himself. And then for those who don't know, and then we'll carry on from there. Thanks, guys.
Okay. Well, thank you both for having me on. My name is Ryan. I am a comic book writer, artist in Christchurch, New Zealand. Been doing that essentially full time for about a decade now, and it's a whole lot of fun. I highly recommend it.
All right. So,
don't know what else to say.
Yeah, we'll dive deep into that soon.
Please.
Yeah.
Shane.
Well, geez, I thought I was bad at public speaking, but I'm an illustrator. I've published lots of book covers. I've done murals and paintings and stuff like that. But I've only done one comic, full comic for myself, which is very recently. This one right here. Try and get it so it's not shiny. All black and white. And that's book one. I've got another book that I'm working on right now, so it's hopefully going to be 3, maybe 4 issues at the most. That should wrap up the whole story. That's what I've been doing recently.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
Awesome. All right. So, Ryan, I read. I was reading a synopsis. Well, I guess a bit of bio at the start of Sophie and Gil, book 1, part 1, and I didn't realize you were a army brat.
Certainly was.
Kiwi army brat. We hear a lot about American army brats, and we see movies about them and all that. But I don't think I've ever met or know of a Kiwi army brat. Do you want to talk a bit about that?
Well, we're out there for some reason, and I'm not quite sure why. The New Zealand military had how you say that, like a presence in Singapore. They're not like an invading or anything, but
a base.
They had a partnership. Yeah, they had a base there, and from the 60s all the way till the end of the 80s.
Wow.
And my dad was he was in the New Zealand Army Band, and they would send servicemen over to Singapore for a 2-year stints, and they would send the families. And we had our own school, we had our own we had our own neighborhoods, and it was great. It was the closest thing to a small town environment that I've ever been in. It was wonderful. And if you talk to a lot of people who I have on Facebook, because I got in touch with some of my old friends through Facebook. And if you talk to a lot of those kids, especially who are over there, they say it's one of the most amazing time in their life.
Yeah.
And if you know me personally, you will know very quickly that I lived there for a while, because I'll tell you. So,
what was it like experiencing that sort of culture? Like, I mean, I've never been in Asia. I've been in the Pacific, Fiji and all that. But I mean, so I know that sort of environment. What was it like living in Singapore as a kid?
well, I was there very young. I got there when I was. I went twice. I should mention that. We came back for a while, then we went back. Well, I got there when I was 3. So my first linear memories are of that place, and it was very Chinese. It was kind of, that was sort of that's my memory anyway. I mean, they had that, and they had Malaysian that, but it was just normal. A lot of locals would stare at you, because you're a bit odd to them, and that's something you just got used to. So my first memories is of Singapore and of the theatrical release of Empire Strikes Back. So that's what was happening in the pop culture at the time. Yeah.
So you said you went twice to Singapore. So first when you were 3, what was the second time?
Second time was in 1984.
Okay.
7. And so we left here. We left here in like August, and it was cold. And we got to Singapore like so many hours later, and Singapore, if you don't know, is a tropical country, and it is hot as hell. Especially if
I think it's on the same line as like Fiji, equator-wise. So you've got the tropical weather all the time. And
I think the reason we didn't go back a third time was my mother could not stand the heat. She couldn't acclimate to it. So I remember the first night of first day of the second trip, it was just like sweat. It's like ice water challenge. It was just someone pouring water over your head. But you got used to it. Yeah. And it felt like but it felt like at a young age, it felt like I had been away 10 years, but it was only 2.
So talking about pop culture stuff, when you went back at 7, what sort of like movies, TV and stuff were you watching in Singapore at that time?
Okay,
Did that influence you?
Okay, so when I got there was this new toy line that had just come out called Masters of the Universe, which we didn't have here at the time. So I was just all about that. Return of the Jedi had happened about a year before, so a lot of the toys and stuff were still on the shelf. And Singapore is like a hot touristy hub, so they bring in everything. And they had a lot of stuff that might be repeating myself, but a lot of stuff there that they didn't have here at the time. Like AT-AT Walker. That's pretty much why we went back, to get that thing. And I'm half joking, but not really.
Dad was the same here. He was like going overseas to buy electronic stuff from Fiji, which was cheaper. And he would have, and these amazing stuff that here would be really expensive, but there would be cheaper. Was it the same case for you over there? Price-wise?
Oh, yeah. Big time. Yeah. What was on? So Masters of the Universe is was for us as little guys was like the big property. The show was once in a while you could get Malaysian television, and the She-Ra show was on in Malaysia. So you can sort of watch a very blurry version of that. I might screw up the name. That Super Sentai was quite big with some of my friends, and I remember seeing like a friend of mine had a little trading card of the Super Sentai team, and when Power Rangers came out, it's like I don't know what.
It was almost like a copy, wasn't it? Power Rangers off Super Sentai out of Japan.
They just like cut out the original actors and just like filmed new people. I remember buying a robot transforming dinosaur, which had all Japanese text on it, not realizing that it was got back here and Transformers was blowing up, that it was Grimlock, but I had sort of the original Japanese Grimlock. And I'm talking about toys a lot because that was sort of my focus. I was trying to what movies and stuff.
You mentioned there was Empire Strikes Back had come out or something.
Yeah. Sorry?
You mentioned there was Empire Strikes Back was just
Oh yeah,
coming out?
that was the first time. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I became a big Star Wars person. So I saw the first. I saw the second one first. Because it was just everywhere. That and first two Superman movies were sort of in the culture. And being such a young kid, that was sort of like all I was allowed to see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So you got back, say what, around about 10, back to New Zealand around about 10?
9, just before I turned 10. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is what what year would this be?
86.
86. Okay.
Yeah.
And so was that from Singapore back to Christchurch?
Yep.
Oh,
Sure was.
Extreme.
Yeah, we came back in September.
Extreme hot to extreme cold.
Oh my God. It was a shock. I wanted to like wear my normal shorts and like a light shirt on the way on the trip home, and my mum said no. She knew, I didn't. I got off the plane. I was like,
Crazy. You don't notice tropical heat until you get out of your air-conditioned plane and actually just step into it. Like I always say, it's like a wall of heat.
Yes.
It's like it's like when I used to be a baker, we'd open up the big man-sized, ovens, double door ovens, 6-foot door ovens, and the heat would come out. That's just like walking out of New Zealand air-conditioned plane into the heat of the tropics. It's hard to breathe sometimes.
Yeah, air conditioning in Singapore was such a gift. We had at the time we had ceiling fans. That was how we cooled ourselves. And once in a while you go into the city or something, and you walk into a shop and they were air conditioned. I'm never.
What was it like getting used to the food there and then food here?
Oh, it was easy. It was I mean, it wasn't that. I guess we didn't go to the more localized food places, if you like.
Right.
The New Zealand military Singapore culture had its favorite places to go.
Right.
There was this place next to the army barracks, Diet Barracks. It was called the Sportsman's Rest. It was next to this golf club, and we would all go there to eat. So there was this place called the Cola Bar, which was a steak restaurant. We had our favorite haunts.
Right. Yeah. It's much like the Americans, where they take their American army bases, only American food, or everything that you would eat in America would be at that base. So there was no need to acclimatize with the local community, with the food or anything or culture, because it's just you there and your thing.
You could do that, but we did. There was a place near us that had street food, street vendors and stuff. That we would go to a lot. So we weren't complete, tourists. But you could just stick to the old fast food American if you liked, because they were all there.
So when you got back in '86, how did you settle back into the New Zealand schools and stuff compared to when you were over there? Was the school system different because you're the New Zealand base and everything? But what was it like, trying to get back into the schooling here?
Well, not to get too personal about it, because I had issues with one of the teachers in Singapore. It was a very, very state school model.
Yeah.
And so my mother, essentially, wanted to find a new school, so I went to the Rudolf Steiner School in Christchurch, which is very different to a state school system.
Yeah.
Just to kind of get me out of that that world that didn't really.
Was it?
Really
did it have any? Did it have anything to do with like your learning abilities or the way you because being an artist, you're sort of more visual, right?
Dyslexic, bro.
Yeah. Okay, so with dyslexia, so tell us a bit about dyslexia, because I know some bits, but I think there's more to it than that, of course.
I'm not sure, but it's I just cannot absorb information. Like learning from a book is really hard. I have to like read it like 4 or 5 times to like a lot of drawing books and stuff. The text is it's words, so you have to
over and over.
If you show me, or through video or something like that, I can pick it up a lot better. But it's just a different way of learning, which is means in the state school system you put in all the remedial classes.
So
keep away from
smart
kids. Yeah.
I've got a brother with dyslexia.
Yeah.
And he hated school too. He hated it.
Mm-hmm.
But of all the people I know, he's got the best memory of anyone I ever know, because he tries to memorize everything instead of having to read it and stuff like that. What do you have a coping thing like that?
Yeah, I can relate to that. Yeah. Well, a pretty good memory. I don't know if it's because of that, but
So with your comics, then, just going straight to the comics, obviously the art part is what you probably enjoy.
I like both.
These writing stories. Do you have like a person that spell checks and goes over everything with you? Do you have a? Yeah,
I do. I'll shut up. My mum actually was a shorthand typist, and black belt and shorthand typist, whatever. That's what she did in the 60s and 70s, and she still has that skill. And every project I do, what I've been doing is I've been printing off the artwork with lettering on it, and go meet her for lunch or something. It says and she kind of writes everything, corrects everything, and gives it back.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and
I think getting back to the state schools, I remember having the same, if I had stayed around, I still had difficulty myself at learning. I spent up to Form 5 in special reading classes, from year dot. The moment I arrived in New Zealand was, and I can read so much, but I still have problems spelling, and and I think the idea was back in the 80s, when I was at high school at Form 3 or something, you'd have a special room just for the kids, and they'd chuck all these kids who had, say dyslexia or whatever learning difficulties they had into one room, and they'll be like, oh, they're the special needs class. And you kind of wondering why, because a couple of my mates were in it. They never tell you why or what. It's see, they have to go to that. And it's kind of like ostracizing of, students at that level. And so you kind of look at them differently, or you feel like that they're not part of the entire school because they're just over there.
Yeah.
And I think it's what puts a lot of people off schooling and dropouts. That's why we have a high rate of dropouts, because that whole, they don't want to learn. It's not that we don't know how to teach them. It's not, they don't want to learn. It's and so we just excuse ourselves not to be able to teach them, a different way, to just saying, oh, it's their fault and not ours. It's so you just turn up to school to eat lunch, basically, or go to recess or throw the ball around. And I think, I don't know where the schools are at the moment, but what I do know is that here in Whangarei, there are two different art schools. One's a design school, and one's a school leavers art school, right, where they get you into designing websites, get into graphic design, get you into doing art and several things like fabric design, fashion, and all that stuff, and sewing, right? And because you can go from like just designing a garment or a t-shirt to actually doing it, and then putting together a what used to be at university levels or polytechnic levels are being done at school leaver for free. And I think that is where the special needs has kind of fallen into, where you don't have to stick with school because, as with being an artist, us as an artist, we visualize shit. That's the way we work. We just, like you said, got to see it to, just understand how to do it. And I think these schools really surpass what the theory schools are like. I mean, I had that same thing when I went to, Polytech for 2.5 years. I would do all the art and leave all the theory because I couldn't understand what they were trying to do. Because I don't want to explain what my art is about. I want you to see my friggin' art and get it.
Yeah.
Then if you haven't got it, then it's my failure. But I'm going to try my best to make sure that what I create is for you to interpret yourself. And I found that I found that like if I have to do theory, which is going to take me a week, then to create one piece of work that will take me a day, and have to explain that one piece of work that's going to take me a week to explain, to write it all down, all the technical jargon, it's not worthwhile to me. But high art, which I have a difficulty with forever, ever since school, is that high art makes you explain what art is without letting people experience it. So I as an artist would tell you what my art is, not let you experience and learn from it. And I think that's basically what the teaching was like back in those days. It's like, tell me, or, well, we don't understand you, so move along. Finish your 3 years at high school and, get out and go get a job or something, where in our case was FCO, right? Most of our kids ended up at FCO, butchering meat. That was it. There was nothing else for them. And then you find now that a lot of the kids that come out of the small town who have gone out of their own way and learned to do learn their own way and experience life their own way and come back and actually do better for our communities because of that. And I think that's my thing on it. But like I think pushing technical stuff on people that can't understand technical stuff but can create amazing artwork, that's where it should be. I think that's a greatness of having our small arts communities all over New Zealand, right? If you look at, like, I was thinking about, with Funtime comics and stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, like, seriously, this is, this has allowed so many people to become comic creators in New Zealand. I was thinking about Jason Lenny. I was thinking about while I was reading, I was thinking about all the stuff this morning. Thinking about Dylan Herrock, right? He takes it to a more kind of like a more professional kind of level, but that doesn't mean this isn't professional. It's freaking amazingly professional. It's just the packaging, right? And I was thinking, like, imagine all these artists that are coming up now had that back in the 80s, had that sort of community back them up. We'd be so thriving, competitive with the rest of the world, where the Europe is right now, where we would be, where the UK was right now, we would have been in the 80s. But I think we are getting there, and I think the joy is that seeing so many people like yourself, like Shane, like myself, like Dylan, and everybody that's worked with these guys, with Jason, and the communities that's popping up and creating amazing stuff. It shows you that you don't have to be technical to be creative and do stuff like that. So that's my two minutes off that. So I'm let you guys talk. Shane, do you have any questions? I mean,
that was a lot you just said. So going back to the part where you're talking about the communities and stuff, I think that's one of the few pluses of the internet at the moment, is the communities that you can work from New Zealand but get your work worldwide. Whereas like you said, in the 90s, when I was at Polytech and I wanted to be a cartoonist then, I was literally thinking about saving up and flying to New York, because you couldn't fax your artwork across. If you had to courier, it would be hundreds of dollars off original artwork being flown over there. The internet hardly worked, so it's like, I mean, nowadays, at least you can, that is one of the pluses. You can show your work to everyone across the world.
Yeah.
You can look at lots of people's artwork yourself. So I think that is one of the major pluses of the moment. I mean, I think the internet's full of trolls too, but but there's got to be some good things on there too. So, and a random thing about learning too. I learnt the most myself from the tutors that I did not like. The ones that pissed me off and wound me up are the ones that I kind of sat there going, I'm going to prove you wrong. And, you know, up yours, I'm going to do better than you think. So for you, Ryan, how did you learn like the best? Like, what was the best way for you to learn stuff?
I copied. It's pretty much, and just a lot of practice. My parents would get me these the reams of what's called copy paper now. At the time, it was typing paper, and they're just like, you know, give me a pencil, and I would just go. A lot of copying.
So who
actually
was copying?
It was at school. It was this guy who usually taught like English and history and stuff. He was subbing for the art teacher, and he gave us a very basic figure drawing class. And I felt my ability went from here. Oh, here's the camera. Here to like there. But just knowing that, you know, the head is so big, the body is so big, that served me well until I could find a better, more refined version of that. But I was, for me, it was just a lot of practice, a lot of copying, and a lot of different people. And I don't discredit swiping, as long as you're not, you know, swiping someone and putting your name on it. It's like you kind of mix it up. You just keep.
I think there is a difference between swiping and being inspired and putting your own touch to it. I mean, I'm someone who copies actual photos, right? When I'm doing that sort of thing, I don't do that anymore. Like, I don't do art at all, more illustrations or that much at all. So I would basically, this is back in 2007 when I started getting into it, because I did it based off my actual film that I made, right? So I'd go around it with a mouse button with illustrator, whatever it was, I can't even remember which it was, and just ticking around it, right? And then afterwards, when I got a Wacom drawing pad, then I would go around with a pen around the same thing and tighten up more. But even now, like, if I want to have a character look a certain way, I go, this is the face of this person off the internet. Now change it into your own art style to look this way. You know, that's the features I want. Because say if there's an Indian person in there or Asian person, it's, you know, I might want a certain look on that person because I'm trying to tell a story. And it's the same thing when you're telling a story. You want your art to look a certain way. I think a lot that we've found over the years is that people just swipe for the sake to do not actually do something with it, but just to say, oh, I can do like that person, and here's my work, or not even just.
Maybe I should keep my mouth shut here, but at like certain shows, I would, in the artist alley, I would see usually young artists who have, you know, got wicked skills, but they wouldn't just reproduce like a promotional image from Iron Man or whatever. Yeah, and it's beautiful and it's stuff, but it's just, that's not yours.
But I mean, who wants to see the same as everybody else's art? All right, I mean, I don't want Todd McFarlane art to be done by somebody else, right? I want Todd McFarlane art to be done by Todd McFarlane. Then I'll pay the dollar for it, and not for somebody else ripping off Todd McFarlane. You know, it's like, hey, Shane, give me a Todd McFarlane version of Conan, you know, kind of thing. It's kind of doesn't work.
Yeah, but I'm not talking not pastiches, but just kind of literal sort of one-to-one
Yeah.
photo reproductions
Yeah.
of famous Marvel actors or whoever. And yeah, and you know what? If they're selling that stuff, it's okay. So I don't know.
I think
I shouldn't
there has
judge.
been a tightening up of that. I think
Yeah,
across the board,
I bet.
there has been a tightening up. The original artwork has to be an original artist alley. It's sort of like so you're not just reproducing. But it's hard. You don't want to police at the same time.
No.
You know,
I don't want to.
you don't want to keep.
Don't want to discourage or anything, but
That's the thing. You want to say, hey,
Yeah,
look, have you thought about doing it in your way? Like what would it be like with your eyes? But
I remember
I'll let you artists talk.
There was a painter some years ago who was selling like phone cases and posters and all sorts of things. But all she was doing was like oil reproductions of like comic book pages.
Mm.
She got a bit of backlash for that. I don't know what happened, but her web store disappeared pretty quick.
I think that's the same. It's basically. Carry on, Shane.
It sounds pretty similar to what happened to that Greg Land guy, where he would he used photo reference so much that he was basically tracing. He wasn't redrawing or adding anything to it. He was just tracing.
Yeah.
And just adding some digital colors. And when they found out, because he started using like Sports Illustrated covers and stuff, it's like one of the biggest selling magazines in the world at that time.
Yeah.
People are going to notice. So I don't think there's any personal. Sorry, I don't think there's anything personally wrong about swiping or copying others' artwork when you're learning, because when you learn, you normally copy from several people. You grab it from everywhere, and after, I don't know, there's that thing about you get your own style. I don't think you are born with your own style. I think it happens when you draw for 10 years. You start to work out what you like and you don't like. I think that's how it happens. You swipe bits from here, you swipe bits from there, but you end up combining it in your own way. So I think that's how most people learn. I think that's how you learn the guitar. I think that's how you learn to play sports. You watch other people do it. So
100% agree.
Yeah. I think there is a point when, like, after copying, learning, getting all the inspiration you can, to where you go, this is me. You go, this is what I do. This is me now. This is how I will do this. And I think it sometimes, in trying to get there quicker, I think trying to get there quicker, you just leave that behind. And I was thinking about I can't remember now. Who's a great cover artist who does did all the Marvel paintings and stuff like that cover? Gosh.
Alex Ross?
Yeah.
Alex Ross.
So Alex Ross, I remember seeing his thing. So he would actually get his people to model, right? He'd get models to do the positions and stuff like that. So he would do that quickly, and then he would go and now he's got the right poses, and then he would go and paint it. And that has made him, in the 2000s, made him very popular. But then that became a saturation of the industry where it became like he's on everything, and like if he's on everything, it's like that's all everybody wants now. It's just Alex Ross, and you'll sell a comic book.
I remember when Marvels came out. Came out, and it was the sensation, and it was wonderful. But I shortly after that, every other cover was essentially a rip-off of Alex Ross. It was just all these painted covers everywhere.
And I think there's the same with is it Sean Young? Sean Young, Steve Young, who's that guy? I Hate Fairyland. He used to do the baby covers. Yeah,
Scotty,
yeah. So there was a point where Scotty, everybody would love Scotty's playing because there was only one or two variant types, and then suddenly he was on everything. And I think it's like I said, let the market decide, right?
Yeah.
So like with Alex Ross, after a while the market got sick of seeing Alex Ross and everything, so he was put at the wayside. And then Alex decided to work on his own books, put out covers, his versions, and he did really well with that. I think he did a crowdfund for one of his all of his paintings and art onto a hardcover. And I think that did really well. I would have loved to have one of those, that hardcover book. And then same thing with Scotty. It's like, all of a sudden Scotty was on everything, and then the market decided, no, we don't. You've oversaturated the market. And I think it's like when you have your favorite food, right? When you have your favorite ice cream, and you eat that ice cream for about a month, and then you go, oh, this starting to taste gross now, And I think that's the way we are as human beings, with saturation of art or even writing, And I think that's where the mainstream industry is right now. We've had saturation of a type of story or characters now, and then it's like, you know what?
Yeah.
I think it's time we've gave the true independence time, in the mainstream. Let's support our independent creators and stuff like that, which is where I'm at with right now with what we do. Yeah.
I think that's why Marvel Comics are losing sales, because with the movies, the TV programs, comics, and they're all kind of very similar. It's like, I think that's why the e-comics are now picking up. Like Image and some of the small studios are now getting some of the most popular comics of each year. So, Boom Studios, who had never heard of a couple of years ago, now show up on the top 10 lists all the time.
Yep.
Same with Image. It's like, Batman's always going to be popular, but all the other spin-offs, it's too much. You don't need 20 Batmans.
No. Well, I think they said 50% of products that were coming out of DC last year was Batman. 50%, almost. I think it was close to 50%. So now we're oversaturated with Batman on everything, and so people are like, you can't buy 50 books or 25 books because they put out 50 books a month. So you can't buy 25 books of Batman because they're not all going to be successful. But the great thing is, sure.
You just find the good one and you buy that one.
Yeah.
And the rest.
Yeah, at the expense of all the others, right?
So, yeah, when I was collecting, I had about a handful, maybe 4 or 5 a month. The ones I liked, and once in a while I would find something new. But I just couldn't do it. After a while, it was like you pick up one book and it's like, and the story continues, and Teen Titans, like, no.
Yeah.
I'm not doing that.
Yeah, and then 3 months later, it's a new one. And then 3 months later, it's a new big, huge, another universe, destructive force comes out. He's going to destroy the universe, or she's going to destroy the universe.
I got a little tired of all new history-changing event. Yeah, this time it's real, guys. Yeah, we promise. And, come on.
Yeah. One of the things
whatever will flop, and you'll just default back to how it was. Yeah.
We're not going to see any history-changing events in your comics. You're not going to have Ryan Green #1 3 times.
Well, I've got a Sophie and Gil prequel that's sort of on the boil, but it's short. It's short. It's like 10 minutes. But no, I'm not going to hit the major reset button or anything anytime soon.
I think that there's a thing about continuity that we've gotten used to as human beings. Like, we want the story to carry on. We don't want to keep going backwards. It's like looking at your regrets, right? It's like, okay, I had a regret. Let's go back and fix that. Oh, okay, let's go. Oh, I can't. Life goes on. And I think the fact that life goes on, so should the comics. Like resetting the button every couple months is just, it's disappointing creatively. And I think that's why I think that independent creators have an opportunity right now for the next 5 to 10 years to take over the market, right? To take over the market and be creative and put out as much creative stuff as you can, because by the time they reset the button in 10 years, we would have already hit the market. We already had our art out there. People are more aware of it. Our books are out there. People are aware of the names. So the more you put out yourself as much as possible in the next 5-10 years, because this is the slump. And I mean, I've been a follower of behind the scenes of the industry for the last 30 odd years, maybe 25. And, you know, watching the market, researching it, seeing what works, what doesn't work, why it doesn't work. The problem is, like, I don't think the big two actually ever think about that. They never look at why it doesn't work. They just keep on and move on and on and on and on. And they don't look back and go, well, maybe we just let the stories tell out. Let's stop trying to rebuild and rebuild and rebuild and rebuild. Let's just work through it. And I think that's where creatives all over the world, and especially in New Zealand, you know, when you're telling stories that you want to tell, nobody can tell you not to. You know,
That's right.
Nobody can stop you from doing that, because it's your story. You're in charge of it. And if you want to create it the way you want, there is no editor, executive producer, studio, the licensee, the governor general of whatever, or the CEO or the director telling you, we can't have that in that book that you're creating. Whereas it's your book, you can do whatever you want with it. And I think that's the joy about coming from New Zealand, is like, with so much people doing it now, you have so much opportunities to share it, to make yourself known. And the only one that's stopping us is ourselves of getting our work out there. So I reckon, like, while this whole, the convulsion that's happening in the mainstream comics, this is the opportunity to say, you know what, we're creating out here all the time, and let's try to, one of the things I was thinking about when I was looking at all this, right, this morning, and once again, thank you for all those books, man. I want to talk about the covers in about another 15 minutes before we get out of all this, was that what I would love to see is a one full-on New Zealand comics convention, just New Zealand comics, nothing else, nothing else, just New Zealand comics, right? Just New Zealand creators, independents. You walk in, 100 creators or 200 creators in a convention, all New Zealand. And now, and they're doing it for themselves. It's just that. There isn't anything else, just comics. Whatever else you're selling with it, posters, whatever, it's all there, right? But it's just New Zealand comics. It's like once a year, New Zealand Comics Con, whatever. And it's, and I think somebody like Jason Lenny, you guys, us up here, I think if we got our head together in 5 years or something, we could do it. And I think there's a lot of value to it, because what it will do, it'll make people all over the world see, wait, you mean there's 2,000 New Zealand comics out here right now? The problem we have is that we're in pockets everywhere. And that's why I love this, because it puts a whole bunch of those together, right? But we're in pockets everywhere. And I think that the fact that we're pockets everywhere, we're going for the same dollar because it's in New Zealand. I think having something like a convention just for New Zealand comics, you'll find that the entire global market will open up for us because of that. And like I said, I'm not just talking because I want to talk about that. I'm talking because of 30 years of experience in that, like seeing how the market works. Carry on.
Oh yeah, so it would be nice to get an audience that who just want to see that. I have been sitting at a table at Armageddon, Christchurch Armageddon, for about 19 years now at at various levels, and it's a great show. But that crowd is there for a lot of things. And comics are not a big part of that show anymore. There have been years where the New Zealand Comics Creators Table has been the sole representative of comics. That's what it was pretty much last year. This year it was different. We had a guest, Freddie Williams, great guy, so I, for the last decade or so, I've sat there, and you get a lot of people who come by and they're there for anything else, and they look at the page, and they look at the cover, Oh, yeah. And then they just like wander off. But then you do get people who are really interested. It's usually that I didn't know you did this. I didn't know there was a New Zealand comics thing.
Yeah.
And they might buy like, you know, one of mine or one of these, you know. But every year there is usually a young person, usually quite a young person with their parent comes up and says, "How do I do this? I want my kid wants to get into this, or I want to do it. How?" And my heart bleeds for them because I want to tell them a good answer, and it says, "Well, you just do this," but there is no good answer. You just like you just want to do it. And you just, put a book together.
I think the good answer to that is to push them towards New Zealand comics. You've got Shane's one who started there called Make Comics New Zealand, right? Make Comics NZ. We've got people joining that all the time. I've noticed that once a week, at least a new person's joining it, if not a couple. I know that, you know, with Jason's group, right? Yeah, that's and New Zealand creators and comic books creators group. I think that's the best way. But the problem is you can't get kids onto that. Parents could show that because you've got to be 18 to get onto Facebook, right?
Right.
So
I used to before lockdown. I was teaching comic book writing workshops for kids through the School of Young Writers and some the library as well sometimes, and it was like how to put together a 5-page story using visuals. And I would always stress, you don't have to draw well. You just have to stick figures is fine. But they always want to know how to. There's always one kid that goes, "How do you draw manga?" And so I'd have to do a little quick drawing lesson. This is how you draw here, and this is where the eyes go, and all that stuff. So they want to learn. They want to learn stuff. But the thing is, they seem to be under the. Some people seem to be under the impression it's like a 3-step process you can learn in 20 minutes or something. It's no. So you sit there for hours and you learn how to draw an arm. and you draw it. Then you draw a head.
It's really like taking a apprenticeship. Yeah. It's like taking an apprenticeship because you can't basically do it in about a 3-month period. You need at least a year to put a comic book out. And a lot of what I've noticed about new writers or new artists, they don't understand the concept of actually trying to do something, build something. They're so used to wanting to get to the end without learning how to build, and because they're not learning to build, and they want to get to the end result, they're not learning anything in the middle, and there is no they don't learn technique. They don't learn bring in their own ideas into it. They just think that if I see it this way, this is how it's done. There is so much because people don't want everything to be everything, right? It doesn't, like, if you have the same of, like I said about ice cream before, you get sick of it. And like, I haven't bought a comic book to read in maybe about 3-4 years, 5 years maybe. I bought them to collect because of artwork, but not to read. And so, but the thing there is, like, I'm reading Sophie and Gil, and I enjoyed it, and I thought, like, this is an all ages book, right? You could give it to anybody. The characters are really cool and fun, and it's not trying to push anything onto you, right? I don't have to worry about what's in it, right? It's like watching an old school Disney book movie, right? Or a Scooby-Doo thing. I know what it is. It's not. I can give it to anybody, and it'll be awesome.
A space fun adventure, and that's all it's
Yeah.
really meant to be.
And I love what it is, and I think we just want something entertainment for a short period of time, and if it grabs us, we'll keep getting into it. One of the things that we've come to is where, like, I think we keep telling ourselves lies about what it is, what we do, or what comic books are, right? We say it's for the kids or it's anime, right? It's either for the adults or it's for kids, right? We don't tell them that you could, like, have fun with it. You can do it for everybody, or you could do it for whatever age group. And I think the silliness of it is that we don't see it as literature and we don't see it as an art. We see it as a cartoon. Therefore, it's just for kids. And that's why people don't put the emphasis, the creative or the educational emphasis on comics or graphic novels as much as they do to do a writing course, right? Or if you go to do graphic design course. And that's why we're failing in that area, education-wise in New Zealand.
Well, I would open the workshop with a little statement, and I would always get funny looks. It says, we are not. I would tell them the ability to draw is not number one. This is not the number one ability. It is, we are dramatists. We're here to tell a story, and I would get it, because they a lot of people kind of think of it as kind of an art exercise.
Yeah,
and they don't really emphasize this is your job as an artist is to get the story up on its feet. That's my view. Other people have other opinions, maybe, but
going back a couple of seconds to when Ari was talking about they don't see it as educational. There was a study that they did, I think 10 or 20 years ago, and they were talking about how people learn the quickest. And the best combination was words and pictures, which is why every kid's book is words and pictures. And that they discovered that was miles ahead of any other form of learning, was to combine words and pictures. And yet, for some reason, they get to a comic book and they think that's low educational value.
I think a lot of people don't see it as childish, and
well, no, we
see art as childish, and they don't. Nope, don't do that, which is a shame. Yeah, like animation has the same stigma. A lot of like, adults won't go near an animated movie. I mean, a lot of them are kind of kid-friendly stuff, but there's a lot out there that isn't. Yes.
So let me just. I was holding up this book called Taniwha, the Master Book for New Zealand Children. Right. So this is from 1985. If I remember right. Yep, 1985, and it's printed in Hong Kong, but New Zealand, Hodo and Stratton. So I was lucky to get this in such a good good condition. So this book has got photos of nature and creatures and stuff. Then it's also got illustrations with story, right? And information. Did you know? And then the other thing is it tells you a little story. Then it's got comic books in it. This is 1985, and produced in New Zealand. And it's got activities, the bird on the island of shells. You got beautiful illustrations. This looks like a watercolor, that one. And then on top of that, you got Space Games by Carolyn McDonald, and there's a short story. With awesome illustrations there. Illustrated by Gary Meeson. I guess that's in Kiwi. And there's a whole bunch of, like food. Recipes for kids to make. Right? It's like an annual, right? And didn't know I had it because I pick up anything I can with anything to do comics. And I don't even know when I picked it up. Must have been the last couple of years. But, this sort of stuff for having more of this, right? More of this would go towards putting us along with everybody else. I think comic creators, along with illustrators, along with graphic artists, along with photographers, along with writers, all that. I think that sort of community working together would really help. And I think this is what Rico's kind of alluding to here. Lots of folks don't put their work out there. I think that is a disconnect, but this is the other thing. Just see them as escapes and literature, theater, and cinema. Oh, sorry. I just see them as escapes and literature, theater, and cinema are all the same things. So it's just, they see them as entertainment. They don't see them as anything that could be educational, that could help someone learn. I mean, I spent, like I said, I had trouble for at least about, till I was 15, 16 maybe. So going for maybe about, 7, 8 years of just learning classes, reading, spelling classes. Every term there was something on, Aru gets shipped to, the reading class. Okay, Miss Leadley's waiting for you. Let's go. And I'll have a one-on-one learning how to do that. When I was at Catholic school, boarding school, same thing. Nun so-and-so is waiting for you. Learn how to read. That's where my passion for reading and writing and art comes from. It's because of special classes I had, And I think it also makes your learning, like your reading level, go higher because of that. And so you're not seen as like someone like weak, or special needs, but you're actually seeing someone who's actually educated in that. I mean, I've got like about 5 years of art schooling behind me, but I still don't class myself as a high art, because that, I can do everything, but I don't want to, because I enjoy this thing, this is the thing that makes me happy. And I think a lot of times parents think that by forcing them into one way is going to make them happy because they'll have a better life. But there's a lot of mental illness comes from being forced into stuff. And I think our escapism into storytelling helps us become more balanced, because there's a lot more, not only just educational, but there's morals and ethics that are in stories about heroism, about, like, that's what I liked about this, right? So Gil and, Sophie and Gil. So Sophie basically becomes like this outlet for not putting up with bullies, or not, helping someone in need. So even though it sort of becomes like a story about that, you find that like she's actually going out of her way to help someone, even when she doesn't have to, because she was brought up by someone who told her, that you have to help someone in need. And I think that's the educational side of comics that a lot of people downplay.
Yeah, most superhero stories are kind of morality plays. I mean, you read a superhero story so you can see Superman doing the right thing, helping people out. You read Batman because you want to see him overcoming the guy of the very dark ideas, and you want to see him righting the wrongs. So it's weird that people don't see any value in it, because you can get, like, it's like Star Wars. More people have probably learnt like to be a decent person watching Star Wars or Harry Potter than they've probably learnt from reading the Bible or something like that. You pick up morals, and if you're not entertained, you're not going to listen. So that's my opinion.
Yeah. Modern mythology. That's basically what pop culture is, really. Done right.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's our mythos. We know what values Batman has, what values Superman has, and if you remove his values from him, he's no longer Superman. He's no longer Batman, or Wonder Woman, and I think you can't have one without the other. And the problem, I think, just finishing here with this part of the segment, is that because why we see the mainstream dying, like, and all the issues they're having, is because they're removing the main core values of those characters. They think if you just dress it up as something else, the values and the core things will keep people coming. But if you remove the core values of something, if you remove the core value of who I am, nobody would like me, right? Or even want to be next to me, because I'd be this terrible person. Because, if I don't have any values or morals or ethics that draw people to me, or my big mouth or whatever, right? People won't come. So if you dress up Superman as something else that he isn't, that we know him for 80 years of being, I don't want that.
Are
And
you
nobody,
referring to a certain movie from 2013?
No,
Okay.
but I'm just saying, I mean, it is what it is. But I mean, if you remove the core value of an ongoing character, right? We know that, he grew up as a small boy in a small town, in a farm value and hard work and all that was put into him. How to care about other people, because it was just the three of them, and why he did, how he was raised. If you remove all that, like they did with Superman Red Sun, if you remove all those core values and you change it, you'll see what he'd be like. He'll be evil, right? And because it's our core values and ethics and morals that make us who we are. Because otherwise we'll be just degenerate people, at the end of the day. But I think the great thing about New Zealand comics is that, like I said, we're the cusp of actually doing and creating an environment for more creatives to be able to have an outlet and to join the outlet, to be able to show people all these amazing creators that are out here doing stuff. We don't have to look overseas. Sure, I'd rather have like 75% buying New Zealand stuff and on top of 25 American or overseas stuff, because that means that you're building into the lives of our own. And you're actually, those people who are doing well are then building into the lives of those around them in the community. And I think that's why I value what Jason and Dylan do really well, really, really highly, because I think they're leaders in what they're shaping us to be, and into what our market should be, which is that when you go to a comic shop, there should be a whole shelf full of New Zealand comics, right? In a bookshop, in a library, and in a comic shop. Because if you have a whole shop, a whole shelf full of New Zealand stuff, that means that not only do we have growth, but we have support. And I think the fact that we don't have that at that level, that's why we don't get to see New Zealand creatives making money off their work, I guess, to a level that they should be, because that just goes back into the community, right? I think all that comes back into the community, and I love seeing new work all the time. I think seeing new artists rise up, and I think for us to be there to support them, doesn't matter who they are, what level they are, is what we can do as a legacy to ourselves as creatives, is to be there to support them, because we can be the teachers that we always wanted to have, right? At school, right? We want to be the teachers that we always have to the kids that are coming up now, the young that are coming up, that want to do this stuff, because they'll be the ones who carry on the torch, as they say, and create what we want, what I want, which is like to be able to go into every shop and see this New Zealand comics there, all right, and done well. I mean, and hopefully that is what every other creators in New Zealand, viewers as well, on that we support each other and we're not trying to bite each other, right? Like one of my American friends says, crabs in a bucket, right? We're not trying to jump on each other's back to get higher, but we're actually trying to hold each other up to say, hey, check out that guy's work, he's learning, he probably needs some support. How do we tie everybody into everybody? Because that's a growing industry. That's how industry works, if you're supporting everybody around you and not just putting your own thing in there. Not trying to jump on the back of others and so forth. But let's move on from that, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Tendon, and let's talk about your amazing work. And I think once again, guys, I'll hold these up so you guys can see what is available, and then you can go on about where you can get them, and then we'll get deeper into them. So this is Sophie and Gil. This is four. Is this like four stories?
Five stories. Yeah.
How many pages are in this? Like, there's definitely numbers.
I think it's about 40, something like that.
So it's a double-sized comic book.
Yeah.
And it's got an ISBN, so you can basically grab the ISBN, order it, and stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
My little enterprise is very much a work in process.
Right.
These.
So just before we go on, so Rico's asking there if this is a homage to anything.
Of course it is. I'll explain that in a second. But the best place to get this is probably from my website, which is ryangreen.co.nz. And send me an email. We're a two-person operation here. We got like other things on the fire. We got a lot of pots on the fire, and so we're going to be setting up a web store soon. I promise.
Awesome.
But if you send me an email, I'll get it to you.
Brilliant.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. But the cover. Yeah. Okay. So the story of the cover. This was supposed to be just a mock cover.
Yeah.
This is something I just did for fun, and I put it on Facebook. Like, ha ha ha. It's a pastiche of Star Wars #1 that Marvel did in '77.
I didn't even notice. That was me. I was like, I think this is from a 2000 AD thing. That was my thing.
Well, it's not. It wasn't supposed to be the cover of this book. This book wasn't supposed to exist, really. What was happening was I was working on this Digital Butterfly 4 for the Christchurch Armageddon show that was in December.
Okay.
And I just didn't get it done on time. And what I had all these finished Sophie and Gil stories that I had done for Funtime, and I thought I really want something new. So I threw them. So I threw them through. Take two. I threw them all together in design, and I said I need a cover. Oh, I got that cover. Why not? But yeah, it is. I really should have put that after.
What's the general story about? What's the general story of the comic?
Oh, Sophie and Gil is about Sophie and her robot pal. Yeah, and Sophie is a young woman who was the first mate on this ship. Her dad was the old experienced space captain, but he died shortly before this starts. So she sort of inherited this kind of position as starship captain, and she's sort of trying to feel her way, and she. And I kind of framed it as like the first major decision she makes as on her own as a captain was to when she finds this this robot.
I really enjoyed the story.
He takes him on as a first mate essentially, and they go and have adventures together. If you read it, it was. So it's supposed to be they're all supposed to be one and done stories, like 8-page single stories, but at the end they start to merge into an arc, which was not my intention, but that's just the way it happened. I just wanted to do a space just for the fun of it, really.
It's really well done. I like the story. I think things Rico's saying if it's Gil or Gil, it's Gil because of the father, right?
Yeah, Gil was Sophie's father's name. It's Gil, and there's no deep thought into the names or anything. Gil is named after Gil Gerard from Buck Rogers in the 25th century. Which was my favorite show when I was 4, which jumped back to the
Bitty.
When I was 4, that was on TV, and I loved it.
Yeah. So, what made you think about doing a sci-fi story like this?
Oh,
Is that because of your love for it?
yeah,
or-
I just love it. I just love space adventure stuff. Yeah, love it.
So the other-
It's
So
it's-
the
it's-
other comic you're working on looks very different to the space adventure. What is the other one about?
all right. Digital Butterfly. It is about. Actually, get a better example here. Yeah, it's about this character, Butterfly. She's an android. She wakes up pretty much in a junk pile, and her memories are shattered, and she's trying to make her way home. And she's she's following like her memories of her former life, but yeah, and she meets these various characters on the way. These characters called Scraps, who are these kind of orphaned kids who live in this futuristic cyberpunky city. And this one's just come out. This character who's a police investigator who is her job is to find Butterfly. And yes, so there's a detective story in here that taps into the origin of the main character, and it's if that garbled explanation answers your question, that's great.
Is it inspired by the Dalita Battle Angel thing, or is it something that you just...
No. It's inspired a little bit by, what was it called? Osamu Tezuka's Metropolis, that movie that came out in like 2001.
Yeah.
Yeah, the hairstyle kind of resembles that. It's a different story. But it was well, what happened? Okay, so it was a short film idea that I had when I was a student. It's like I'll do something like a little animated thing or whatever. But Butterfly references digital Madame Butterfly, the opera, and way back when I was kind of interested in different things, and I had read the libretto of that opera, and it just struck me that the main character, who was a young girl who was essentially sold as a part of a deal to this American naval officer, and she's so in love with this guy, and she announces her family and all this stuff, and makes herself a bit of a pariah in her village. And in Act 2, he bogs off back to wherever, and she's waiting for him the entire act. And everyone knows that, hey, you should really move on with your life. You should accept these marriage proposals that you're getting. It's just no. And it just struck me as very naive, and it just kind of clicked and says it's sort of like almost like a computer program, like a computer program cannot move beyond it itself,
right?
And so like a robot. So that's says, well, if there was a robot that looked like.
So I've got a question here. So
yeah.
So Rico's saying, is Digital Butterfly a dark tale or more of a general audience story? Seems like it seems to be quite dark.
It gets dark in places. Yeah. Yeah. Not too dark. I don't.
What really
heavy things.
What really excites me about this is, and that's, that I'm not sure if that's the right term for it, but the line work, the contour between dark and light, shading and stuff, the beautiful, roundedness of it's really hard to describe how when we start talking about line work and stuff, but it's just like some of the emotional things that come out. Like, I mean, you look at that piece there, and you're going across and seeing her face and stuff like that. But one of the other things that surprised me was the amount of, panels, and it reminds me of Watchmen, the amount of panels. And but the other thing is, it's such a joy to see that many panels on a page, but done well.
Okay, well, it's nice for you to say, but that is because 1 and 2 were supposed to be a web comic, and so it's laid out. All right, so this is a page.
Yep.
That was supposed to be a single page that would fit on a monitor screen.
Oh, okay.
And the next like that.
Yeah.
It just didn't turn out that way, and it's sort of similar to the Sophie and Gil story. I needed a book real quick, so so sort of like threw it together, and I thought, okay, that's fine. It kind of bit me in the ass when I went to visit Stu at Heroes for Sale in Auckland when I was there, and thankfully he bought the book for his shop, but he said the format's too big and the page layout is too busy. And I thought, oh, okay.
I actually thought it was quite,
it's still too big. It's still too big only because 1 and 2 are that size, and I wanted to keep it consistent for the people who are buying it. But if you'll notice, in 3 and 4, it goes to a more traditional.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys don't know what we mean by about size-wise, so this is a normal comic book size, standard US, which we all kind of try to stick with because that's where the packaging and boarding is.
Yep.
So you've got an extra, so you actually end up having with an extra 1 inch on all around it. But I don't see those pages as being, being busy. I just see them as like, kind of like what it's there,
Okay.
I guess if you decide not to do that for next printing, then that's fine. But I think, like I said, it reminds me of Watchmen. He says beautiful 9, nine panel pages, and you just go, well, that's of course. I mean, accidents can be happy accidents sometimes, and that's sort of the art is like that, right? Sometimes you think, okay, I'll go this way, then you have an accident or do something wrong, and then like, oh, it actually works. And I think this really works. I mean, sure, it'll give you more pages, and be larger if you were to change it back to the, I think it's 1.7 by 2.1 or some size it is. But I mean, I think I love it. I think it's great. But I mean, it is hard to like. You'd have to get them old Conan magazine size covers. The plastic bag and bone, as I used to call, plastics to cover them, and that's going to be probably the hard sell for stores. And I think that's the only thing.
But we just had a Armageddon again, last week, and due to the response from that, my wife and I have decided that we will probably package the first 4 into one thing from now on, and just do like a small number of the next, and just have them as one thing. So I think having these single issues can be a bit of a challenge, because they'll buy one or 2, but they're not necessarily.
So you're thinking of like a graphic novel?
Kind of, yeah. That's the final goal for when it's all done. And by the way, we're halfway through. So Digital Butterfly, and so it'll be twice. I
think the end result for like having a collection. I think I think one of the things that we don't realize is that graphic novel sells better than floppies. but it's hard to get there because you're still trying to earn a living or earn enough money to pay for the printing cost and sales. If you do by floppy, it's easier. And at the end of having that, then you'd be able to grab a whole bunch of, save a bit of money from themselves of those, and then be able to do it as a single graphic novel. Now, if you're doing it as a graphic novel, would you color it?
Oh, that's a good question. I've thought about it. I've done a few tests, but the response to the black and white art has been pretty good.
Yeah.
So,
but I think if I'm a reader, right, and I've already bought your black and white, an incentive for me would be, okay, if I'm going to get the graphic novel, then I would want it something different to what I'm already getting. And that's just me being choosy. That's my mindset.
Okay. Well, that is interesting. That is interesting because my thinking was that I already, now it's in color. I got to buy it again. Come on, yeah.
I buy a lot of graphic novels for that reason because I want the whole story. The thing that would work for that, I think, is throwing in the extra sketch pages, concepts. But put another 10 pages of extra bonus material in the back.
I have been doing that because I just like back matter in books. I put in,
and that's
a lot of art here from because there was a lot of stuff that was unused. And I have pretty much an entire alternate version of part 3. That just didn't work.
I can see Rico.
Thought about packaging
comment
that
about lineup.
Alternative is to do a lineup. Right.
Probably knows what's in.
I think
that's all possibilities are in the air. I'm not sure. I'm just been concentrating on getting each bit out, and I'm not quite sure what the hell to do with it.
That's what I mean. Like I was saying earlier. That's what I was saying earlier, that people don't realize how much work goes into putting a comic book out, and all the time you spend correcting and spell checking. You've got your mum helping out with that. And we already talked about that bit earlier on. But I think one of the awesome, great things is to actually see a finished product. To finally have it there. Hey, it's there, right? Number one's there. It's there on the thing. And so people go, "What have you been up to all these years?" Well, this is what I've been up to all these time. Working hard. And
yes, it is. It is amazing opening up that box from the printer and seeing that was just on my screen last week. And and
there's nothing like
I'm the only one who saw it.
Especially when you're working for so long on it, right? I mean, I'm sure Shane has the same feeling, having seen it for so long, and then suddenly, working on it, getting each line right the way, and realizing if that's the one that works, that panel works, or that character works that way, or maybe we need to change the character around a bit, or if the speech bubble works the right way, and you're always humming and hawing if that's what's going to be the final product until it's printed. You don't feel like it's completed yet. What was it? I mean, you had this out in let me see, you had Sophie and Gil out in here in number 28 of Funtime. How'd that happen?
Okay, so I was in Auckland. I had an artist alley table in Auckland, Armageddon. And if you've been to Auckland, Armageddon, you know that it's very crowded. It's huge. And
everybody knows Armageddon.
the comics creator table was on the other side of the show where we were. So I grabbed my 2 books and 3 books actually. I got this.
When was this?
This was a 2013, 2012, something like that. Yeah. I also have my other book here, which has a bunch of short stories in it, which you don't have. Sorry. So I went over there and made my way through all the bodies, and and met Jason.
Mm.
Jason Laney for the first time, and a few other Funtime people. And I just, it says, "Oh, these are my books. I'm kind of interested. And this is who I am. Hello." And I assumed that they were from Auckland,
Right.
because that's the assumption you make.
Yeah.
And it eventually came out that actually we're all from Christchurch, and you can come to the workshops if you want to. Like, okay. So he showed me. I have it here. He showed me. I'll just use this one. He showed me what Funtime looked like these days. I'd seen the old one at the comic shop, and it was a sort of very zany kind of thing. But Jason was a printer, and he had taken over the book and had turned it into something like this. And I thought, okay, that's interesting. So when submissions opened up again, I said, I got to do something. Got to do something for this. What do I want to do? So I had done this painting here, this illustration, and I thought, well, okay, I got those two guys. What can I do with them? And I always loved space adventure things, and I was into this show called Droids. It was a Star Wars show from 1985, and sort of more like the memory of the show, the actual show. Although it's quite fun. And I wanted to do something like that, so just to cobble together a few names and stuff, and and did the first. Actually, that's in here. So I did the first story like that. Originally it was black and white, but Jason said, we can do color. He says, okay. So colored it up and sent it in, and there you go. First Sophie and Gil published. And all of the stories that are in that collection came out, and these were great. I could put them in my bag and say, yes, you do. It's like, put them out. There you go. So these are the original versions, spelling mistakes and all. And
That's what I like. That's what I love about what they do, and having. I reckon every city throughout New Zealand should have something like, Funtime Comics. And I want to go back to this one thing that we bypassed because I was trying to get to that, to talk about your comics. That here we go. That Rico said a while back. So, does Creative New Zealand support new creative comics? Kiwis. Is this only when fed into Maori and other cultural spaces? And I think the problem is that, like, sadly, comics, like, once again, aren't seen as literature, as actual literature, and so, or actual art as such. However, you'd have to be very, very ignorant of the world as a whole to not see it that way, and not support it that way. Because what are the $1 billion movies, right? What are the movies that make the most money in the world? They're not some romance, term drama or something like that. It's actually something around comic books. The reason for that is usually because over 80 years, people have recognized that heroes, these heroes are icons. And so they understand who they are. And so parents want to take the kids to them, or the parents themselves have been raised on that, like all of us have. And so, however, there is that, sadly, you have to have some sort of ethnic background to have the support specifically to certain areas for funding. For me, it's like, if I'm getting funding, I would go, how do I use it for my community? Right? It's like, how do I take what I get to use it for our community? Because I know that some person's going to miss out, but how do we do it? And sometimes it's really hard because recently, and I think not sure if it was Alan Zia, actually it was Alan Zia, who said on Facebook that it took 1 hour for them to put it up and close down the grant things, right, for Creative New Zealand for artists. So you have to walk through fire and glass to be able to get any funding in New Zealand. And usually, sadly, you have to be in a no to be able to, and have contacts already there to get that support. And there's also where you can get, if you get together with your friends, it's much better to support yourself to do it. That's why I want us to be able to be a growing community to support ourselves. So if we hear something, if there is a funding available that we go, yeah, this is coming up. Because why should I be going for every funding? Because I don't do everything, right? So, but if, say if somebody hears down the line that there is something available for somebody there, then we'll try to get the backing to do that. Sadly, a lot of that isn't happening that way because everybody wants a piece of the cake, and there's only so much cake we can get in New Zealand. And so you have to look to overseas markets, and I think it's better if you're a comic book creator to go the crowdfunding way with Indiegogo and Kickstarter. And that way you have control over your product. That way you have control over what you put in it. That way you have control over what you say in it and how you market it and who you market it to and when you do it. You're not under any obligation to fulfill any quota. You whatever quota that may be, you just do it your way, the way you want. And I think this is why I say the independent creators out there are at the best place any time in history right now to be able to do it for themselves as an indie. Because especially the last 2 years, the economy has been downhill. Inflation's kicking everybody. The actual funds aren't there for artists that might have been there because we were growing towards actually funding comic creators out of New Zealand, out of Creative NZ. But from what I've seen is that the bucket has dried and it's getting smaller and smaller because of 2 years of rolling lockdowns. And small businesses can't even support. So we need to actually team up ourselves and be creative ourselves. By creative, I mean like thinking on how to help each other out and creative ways of doing things in this situation right now. Because if we keep relying on anybody else to help us or look for funding elsewhere, there is a lot of hurdles to get, as part of that, to find that. As much as we are a very art-centered body, we still are not as, we still are lucky, to be honest. Compared to America, as independent creators, we are very lucky having a support for artists in New Zealand. Some countries don't even have that. I know in America they do not have that. You're on your own. No matter what, you're on your own. So I mean, like for us, with Plunge and stuff like that, with Armageddon, with all the small, small independent conventions around New Zealand that's starting up, I'm all for that because that helps people like myself, yourself, and others around New Zealand show up, right? Pay a couple bucks for a table and show up and sell their product and show people that it's there. That way you're building up ideas for yourself, building up a backing for yourself. You're mingling and finding out other creatives around there, because if you rely or even think about relying on the government to fund it, there's other 900 people out there for the same thing. If not, there's a lot more people out going for that same money. So I think as much as I would love to see more funding, it's better if we just work amongst ourselves to help each other out to create, pushing for a collective. That's why I see Funtime as a great thing, because it's a collective of creators around New Zealand doing it for themselves and supporting.
Can I shout out another one?
Yeah.
This is one from Dunedin called Battle.
Right.
Yeah, it's more of your
Can you hold it up again, please?
kind of zany kind of
Mm.
thing, but it's really cool. And I'll just do a little self plug here. I did a story for that. I met the Abe, the editor of this Edge of the World, which was a show they did, and yeah, so yeah, battle.
Awesome. So I mean, like Shane got a chance to put his one in Funtime as well, right, with the robot, and with no text or anything, and it was awesome. And this is what I mean. So like us up here in Whangarei can put some work into Funtime down in Christchurch. See, that's supporting the community, and I think something like that is where I think we'd see more of, where we could basically have a Funtime stores up here in Plunge. You can have Funtime down in Dunedin, right? That sort of thing. There's not just Funtime, but I mean creative New Zealand comics, stores around at every single thing, because that way you don't have to have Jason at everything. All you need is a couple of boxes sent up to each of these things. Go, okay, what is that called? Like on consignment, you sell on consignment. You don't have it, what doesn't sell, you send back. Because that way you're supporting the community without making, without Jason or anybody involved with it, having get on a bus or get on a plane to be there. And I think that's why I reckon that we should be more open to collaborations in that way, because the independent circuit's the only thing that's going to support this creative side of us in New Zealand with the comics and stuff. So I'm just going to have a look at, I'm just going to read out some of Rico's stuff, because Rico is someone who's very supportive of comics in New Zealand, and also as a collector and as a reader, he has a lot of outside ideas, I guess you could say. So with print expenses, it does make webcomics attractive. But did you find there was any money to support your work in that space from your experience? Because you did webcomics, right?
Not really. I got I put like the first two Sophie and Gil up on my other website, webcomics.co.nz, but I've no great experience with webcomics, so, which is a great failing, because I want to look into it, but I
know there's the Kiwi artist Rachel Smith. She did the Law Olympus, apparently one of the biggest webtoons at the moment, and she's actually got 3 books out now because of how successful her webtoon is.
Yeah.
So I guess if you make a product people like, you'll sell it no matter what. It's just getting it out there, obviously, for people to see. I think she benefited from. I think she gained hundreds of thousands of followers because it was free to start with. Yeah. So it's a risky way to do it, but she succeeded because she gained a huge fan base and then put the books out. But yeah, I'm sure she worked for free for basically years. So.
Yeah, that's probably a smarter way to go. Ara, you're muted.
Sorry, yeah, I just realized. So, I mean, I think that's why I say about how people don't realize what goes into it. The struggle to become a comic book artist and creator. There is a lot of struggles, and because you're really competing against the world, but you can get there if you just don't hold yourself back. You just try every avenue. I did web comics back in 2007 with The Circle, right? We had 100,000 downloads, right? And I had a breakdown, head injury and stuff, and I lost that. So that meant that coming back to that, it's taken about another, I don't know, about 15 years, 12 years to come back to that stage, to be back to doing web comics and stuff like that. But imagine back in 2007 when it was popping off, if I had stuck to that, it'll be a well-known name around the world, because when you got 100,000 downloads of a comic book, that's huge. than having like, selling a couple of books at a convention. But that's the balancing act you got to do. If you're willing to give out, but you need to know how to do it. And I think that's why I think the best thing is to be able to be supportive of each other, to say, hey, how did you do that? How did you do that? How do I do that? Rather than being the crabs in a bucket trying to hold each other down. Because I made it. Yeah, I want to stay on top and not let anybody else up top, get on involved. There's something that I think this is referring to the good point about it. Hadn't thought about us in other countries. So I think that's in reference to the fact that we actually fund New Zealand artists and writers and stuff, like with a Creative New Zealand thing. Like even with like the whole TV and movies and stuff, like other countries don't do that. You got to be a studio yourself to be able to fund your own stuff. And I think that's kind of simple, different compared to everybody else. Yeah, this is one thing about printing he said earlier about the printing costs and so. I wonder if maybe that we should all buy into a printing business. And there are people who've thought about that. The cost, the ranges into the thousands. There was a printing company that went down during lockdown, and they were selling stuff off for about proper printing machines for about $10,000. Imagine having that sort of money to play with, and you could actually have that, or electronics all set up. Boom, you just put it in, it's done. But then you got to have a place to house it. Then you got to have security, rental, and all that. And by the end of it, you're like, well, that's now 30 grand or 40 grand, 50 grand now just to have that. So there is a lot more side to that. And as much as it'd be beautiful to have something like that, I think one of the ideas that popping around my head, maybe we should have like a New Zealand Comics union type thing or something like that, right? Or a club, not a union, because unions like somebody could get paid $10,000, $100 a page, and somebody's getting $20 a page, right? Depending on the artwork, and then you're like, everybody has to have the same pie. They have to be paid for $100 for that $20 product, and that's why unions fail in that sense. And that's what we see out of America right now with that. But he is being. He said, hold on there. He said he is being serious about that. I think that would be the game changer. Yeah, it would be the game changer. But I
put up the first three.
Yeah, you put up the first 5. Yeah. And that's the way to work. It's like if you basically buy into it, and the only way you're going to be able to buy into it if you have lots of successful Kickstarters, right? Funding that you are creating yourselves. If you say every year you're making about 20 grand out of a Kickstarter, what do you do with that? Well, most of the time we'll just put it back into our own printing, right? But then where do we send the printing? Well, we send it overseas, or we send it to a highly costing, local printer or something like that.
Yeah.
But I think this is basically a business market. People are already doing that out here, right? You just have to sell expensive stuff to corporate and print comics in the evening. But businesses are already doing that out here, Rico. That's what they're called. They're called printers, right? And that's their job. So we go to them and say, hey, can you print our comics? And they do that while they print all the pamphlets and posters and all that for businesses. So as much as that would be, and it'll become a business again, it'll become the same wheel that's already there, then we'll still have to pay the same business. I think, what are your thoughts?
A quick question for Ryan. Sorry. Yes. Quick question for Ryan. I got my comics printed through Jason because I wanted to keep it completely New Zealand product. Did you get yours done in New Zealand too?
Yep. Yeah, local printer.
Yeah, because I
not through Jason, but it was local printer. We know. Yeah.
I did see lots of places overseas that were offering much cheaper, but I wanted it to be a proper New Zealand comic. I wanted to be able to tell people at conventions or face to face that this was made by Kiwis, supported by Kiwis, printed by Kiwis. So
it was if you were doing like a print run of, I don't know, several thousand, maybe that would be a better way to go. But we just got a box full of it. It's just for this all these books were for good Armageddon coming up. So they're just for like.
So how many
the people who want them? Because the final version of this will be the complete version. And I don't know what I'm going to do when I get that.
So how many copies do you actually have of each one for sale?
Well, that's a question for my.
What was the print run like anyway? So like, how many print runs did you do?
About 30 each, something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
So they're very limited. So if anyone's watching this, they should go to your website now. And grab them.
It's almost like a print-on-demand thing. There's a demand.
But that is the other cool thing about being independent, right?
Call them up again and say, we want you. Sorry?
Yeah. That's the cool thing about being an independent. It's because you're you just ring up and go, hey, print on demand, this is how many you want, and you're done. You don't have to go through the hurdle of saying, okay, you got to do 1,000 to be able to get that and get that out. And I think that's the benefits of doing it locally. And the great thing is, I think if we get to a stage where we can have a convention just for Kiwi comics or whatever, or have a stall at every single local small conventions throughout New Zealand that represents a New Zealand comics, creative side, then we'll be able to slowly support and raise up the bar to where we can actually have something where there's lots of, printers can come to that. So, hey, this is what we print these here, right? This is the local printers here that you can get contact with. Hey, we can do your fabric posters, you can do your cards, stickers, we can create all these things that are part of your comic book, that you can create all these different things. One thing that I'm slowly working towards is trying to get a whole bunch of like merchandisers together, like 3D printers and stuff, getting in contact with them, saying, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we could have, when you put out a little, digital butterfly, you have this character out there as a toy, right? And I think that's been my thing. That's my thing is that if we can have a representative of our characters, then we can actually give more, show more of what we're doing, because there's nothing like, like when people come to you and go, well, why do I have to pay $10 for a Kiwi book when I can pay $9 or $8 for an American book? And you go, what's the difference? Why should I? It's like, well, first of all, you're supporting us. Plus, you don't have all these ads in it. Plus, you are actually having somebody local created, like Shane said, locally printed, local creators, local artists. You're putting people. You're creating jobs for people. You got people that printers that not only are you we're able to do it, but you're having printers with employers, right? So they're spending money local. That money isn't going anywhere else, and so you're able to, not only that, then you're actually able to get somebody to design toys for you, local. Try to go for a walk, like, and then you're creating people with another job outlet, right? You're not just it's not just a comic book anymore. And I think the idea that we just, for too long, we just think of comic books as just comic books and not what Americans think of it, not what the rest of the world thinks of it. They think of it as merchandising, as IP. So you don't, it's a T-shirt, right? It's like I've got there, it's a sleeping bag with Spider-Man on there, right? Stuff like that. You got the figurines. And I think the faster we get off the idea of it's just a 2D thing, right? Word and art, the faster we'll get onto the next way of earning a better money for ourselves and be able to be more creative and more niche markets, creating more stuff for, when the kid walks up, he goes, oh, what's that? Oh, that's the right? That's part of that. That's the character here. Oh, okay. So how much for that? Oh, there's a couple of bucks for that. And if you go to that, I'll give you a couple of bucks less, and then you can have that as well. Or you can have a poster or a sticker with that. I think if that's personally, I believe that's the one way to go forward, to be better at this game of being independent creators than anybody else around the world creating it, because they're not thinking three-dimensionally. They're not thinking 2-3 steps ahead. They're just still thinking of, kids' comics, what you buy off the bookshelf. That's all they.
Yeah.
But if you notice,
they're an expert, and no one is when it comes to comics.
Right. So this is disposable, right, to them. But this isn't. Yeah. This isn't disposable, because this is now going to stay with them to play with or whatever, and so on. But you have so many amazing animators and digital artists and 3D animators in New Zealand that you could, that are there. I even met one this week who was on a toy site, right? Facebook, New Zealand comic toys, action figures and collectibles site. I think Carlos Ferreira runs that site. But the guy showed up and goes, hey, I collect toys, but I also make some of my own. So hit him up and said, what do you mean? He goes, I do this and this and that. Okay, let's spend some time talking about it in a couple of weeks. When I have some time, we'll talk about what you're able to do, how you work, because now I'm offering not only me just as being someone who can earn a living off my work, but I'm offering someone else to be able to earn some money as well as an artist, And I think that's the idea as a collective, that we can bring other people into this game of comic books industry, right? More players on the team, the better we function. I mean, that's my thoughts. I mean, what are your guys talking about?
I think part of the appeal for me is you can get in on the ground floor of a title. You're not picking up a title that's been published for 80 years. You can be sort of the first generation of someone who appreciates something. And it's very close to home. That's my thought.
I want to hear you guys talk. But back in the day, you'd get like it's over there somewhere. But you'd get a pencil with a 2000 AD comic.
Oh yeah.
Right? Back in the 80s, right? So this is what I'm trying to. My idea is to get at, and Rico said something like that. Chaos Comics went under due to merchandise. So there is a difference about it is a balancing act, but knowing the idea about this is that there is the crowdfunding is there to help you balance your, finance you. And I think as hard as it is, if you put your money into it, like I say, it won't happen overnight, but you are building an IP for your product. If you're creating an amazing work, it's your belief in that work, right? So people will only believe in it as much as you believe in it, because you're competing against 99 million other friggin' things in the world, right? But if you have a passion for what you're doing, and other people have the same passion for what you're doing and have a passion for their own things, I think why don't we, there isn't the support base. If we keep connecting, if we keep talking, be more open to each other's skill base, because I know I'm not a 3D artist. I could never be that good, right? Because I don't have the time. But I know other people are. I know that other people have more skills than I do. But not everybody has the same expertise in that. So if you're able to connect other people, because you're trying to grow an industry around this, and you can only do it if you are willing to communicate and willing to work together. The moment you decide not to work together, it's only going to harm yourself, right? It's like if I don't work with other people, then I'm just gonna be still without any expertise in what I want to do, any skills or anything. But I think the joys of what we're doing now is great, and I think here's what Rico's saying here. So basically, what I'm thinking here. So he goes, maybe we need to build an ironclad network sharing context and relationships to help each other maximize opportunity. Right. So the other thing he was saying here is this is here, like Rico's a game designer, so making some indie games on the comic themes that's a low cost, diversifies. You know, it's like one of the things I learned about during lockdown was how was it called? Virtual novels, right? VN games, which is basically it started by the Japanese, which is a computer-based comic book type. You know, it's like text form storytelling. So you click which way you want to go. It's like a pick apart thing. So I went out of my way to learn it. I actually helped someone edit a story online to learn all about it. So now I know how it's done. Coding comes into it, but not like I don't know how to code. So you find someone who knows how to code. You know, there's all these things, and someone like Rico being part of the game creation thing, you'll have context depending on what you want, and that's doing what he says just next, which is maybe we need to build that context and relationships to help each other maximize. And I think and there's this one here he's suggesting as well, which is like limited runs of higher spec items would probably be more feasible starting out. So I've been looking into that, because I wanted to get into merchandising and stuff and toy design and all that. I think for us, we need to bring value to what we are doing. And I think you yourself are bringing value to what you're doing because you've got so much comics out there. You're willing to work, with Funtime, right? Putting your book out there, letting people know that you're there. And then you've got Sophie out, Gil's out there now, right? As a comic book after all this time. Now you're working on Digital Butterfly. So we're able to share all this because we're making connections. We're supporting each other. And I think we need more of that. I think if we want to compete, get somewhere in the next 5 years, because I see everything as a half a decade, every 5 years, we do need to plan and work towards that. But I think I'm just mouthing off too much here. I want you guys to, do a Q&A between you and Shane, because we're almost like past our time, but I think there's more to where you guys, and I'll leave Shane to ask questions from now on.
Okay.
So I was too busy laughing to think of anything just then. So you've got about 30 copies of each of your comics?
Something like that, yeah.
And it's ryangreen.co.nz? Yep. And you'll probably sign them for people if they ask?
I will sign them. I will put a sketch in them if you want. I usually use a blank page in each of them. That's what it's for. Some people like that. Some people don't. But I'll I'll
so if anyone
sign it, seal it with a kiss, whatever you want.
Just saying that people should get in there quick because there's not many copies. So
of the current print run, yeah. There's plenty of these though.
I know. Limited edition.
We got
first issue is worth more.
Yeah, sketch page is great. I got that idea from European albums because they have a blank page in them for that very purpose.
Because that's adding value to it.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah. And some people just like, do you want to sketch? Like, no. And they just they grab it, they go. But most people, they dig it.
Yeah.
If they don't mind waiting a few minutes.
It's good to see Ross Payne join us. He's from Wellington. He's an animator down there. He's worked on a few music videos for local creatives, bands. And if you guys could check him out as well. We had him up here last year. He did all the way from Wellington, right? He's got family up here. They came up here last year and did a whole bunch of sketches. He's a caricature artist, so he was able to come up here. So, like, that's
quite a skill. I've never mastered it myself.
Yeah. So this is the network. This is how we network. We let people know what everybody else is doing around New Zealand. Like you've got, Rico's here with as a game designer, indie game designer, with pixelated games and stuff. But I mean, you've got the other thing on a thing is Alan Zier, right? Alan Zier is an amazing guy with ChromaCon, his own convention with graphic artists and graphic designers and stuff. You've got so many amazing people. It's all good, man. Maybe we'll get you next year. This is Ross just saying, sorry, my bad. Yeah, hopefully we can get him next year. So, Alan Zier with ChromaCon and stuff like that. So there is a lot of opportunities for more people to put events up. I mean, as long as you're not trying to get into each other's pockets, I think it's a great thing, because I think if there's room for more, as long as, you stick with your niche thing that you're doing, or your track, because that way it will allow for more things for more people, people to enjoy and do. But if you do the same things all the time, it gets a bit boring. And I think opportunities in New Zealand is great, because there's always going to be people out there to support you, because Kiwis have a tendency to stick together and support each other when it's really needed. And I want to see more of that. I think we're so cool, and hopefully you can bring some local Wellington comic books, Ross. He's just saying he's going to try to make up next year, because that way we get to show people what Wellington's doing, what Christchurch is doing, and the more support we have for each other, the better we are ourselves. I think we just, that's been my thing anyway. We've gone past our 2-hour mark, and I'm sorry for talking so much, because I just think that, like, coming out of Plunge and seeing this really amazing stuff that's going on around New Zealand, because I keep an eye on what's going on, both open internationally and local. I think it's time for us to just become more of a tighter community of sharing our talents and skills around ourselves. Because if we don't, then we're gonna be all trying to run without any help. It's like a relay, right? We got to have people holding the baton and passing it to us. And if we don't have that baton passing, there won't be industry for us or for anyone coming up behind us.
So I'm so used to being a solo act, just put my head down and write and draw and do my own thing, and I'm not quite sure what's happening outside of my little bubble. It's my failing.
Shane, do you have anything to add?
To add, not really. I think it's just there's a lot of great Kiwi comics coming out at the moment. Lots of different styles, lots of different subjects and stories. So I think if you're into comics and you want to support the local stuff, there's actually a lot that you can find. I mean, I've got my first one. Ryan's got several. Funtime has numerous artists doing their own styles.
Yeah.
You can find something for everyone. So I think you should get out there and buy a few, help them out.
And I think
if you're a creator, if you can find a local group, you might want to check it out. Or maybe start with group yourself. It's nothing stopping you.
Yeah, we've got the Make Comics NZ, which I started up here with Matt Kelly in Whangarei. I've seen that you, down in Christchurch, you seem to have a pretty good group of comic creators that get together. So
they get together
sign up together
once a month.
That'd be awesome.
I haven't been in a while, but once a month at the Central Library in town here. There's also another group called Drawfest, Christchurch Drawfest.
Yeah.
Which,
they're in Auckland, and
I go to that, and they're a lot of fun. So it's very nice.
Positive. That's what I should call out that as well.
If you're new, if you
Drawfest Auckland is I think it's run by Susan Rugg. So, she's on the Make Comics New Zealand. You can go to Drawfest. If you write in Drawfest and just look in your area or whatever, you'll be able to find it. That's where I actually kind of like, apart from, because I used to live in Auckland, so apart from Armageddon, that's how I got pulled into the community, and started promoting community way back in 2007. And I've been doing it since 2007, like trying to promote this, all our creatives around that. Took a few years off there, but back into that's why we do this, because we want to make people connect with other people to see what's going on, because
it's a wonderful way to meet like-minded people. I was a bit put off at first because I would see them at Armageddon and they were all 20s and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, but I'm in a tooth for them. But I went along and it was fine. Yeah. And they're lovely.
Yeah, because everybody is just like us out in this community. We're kind of introverted. There's some of us that are loudmouth like me.
Oh my God.
Some of it a bit more shy, and then someone who's a bit more friendly. But that's what a community is about. Not everybody's exactly the same as everybody else. You just got to find that one person that's going to help you, support you to, get your work out. And I think,
I'm an introverted guy, like most cartoonists. I have to pump myself up to 10 years of being at the Armageddon. We'll do that, and you have to talk to people, and but I see them every show, every Fest, every Funtime. It's like the people goes, hello, I want to talk comics. Well, let me see your stuff. I don't want to see. Because it is like giving birth. It's a painful experience just to show your work, because you don't want people to go. And it's very important to say, well, this isn't very good. Just to be positive and say, no, you can. Yeah, this is pretty good. This is pretty good. You might want to work on this. But just to give.
There is a balancing act, as I found. When you've got groups like Make Comics New Zealand, and groups like New Zealand Comics and creators, or New Zealand Comics, right? Because there's people there that are all levels of expertise there, and they're all doing the same thing that you're doing.
Yes.
And so somebody might be able to guide you in things that you're not aware of. And I think down at heart, we all have want to help people. I think it's just sometimes we don't know how to share it in the right way. And there is a balancing act of how much do you share, but there is you got to be willing to listen and take it on. But at the end of the day, it's your own call on whether you take it on or not. And I think sometimes people think that they'll just tell me how to do it that way, or they won't appreciate what I'm trying to do with myself. But I think if you find that right person, they might be able to help you the right way. And with the groups like that online, you're able to actually have someone actually help you find the right person for yourself to listen to. I mean, way back when, about 2000, something like that, 2010, 2011. I mean, I had the guy that was working with Warren Ellis on his Freak Angels, which, as you know, is now a cartoon series, right? Animated series. The artist on that book, Darrow, I think it was Jeff Darrow, I hope it was, just told me what I need to do when I'm coloring online, on Facebook. Basically said, make sure all your lines are touching, right? Took that on, and I've always thought about that. Make sure your lines are touching, because then when you go to color, And I tried to tell that to somebody recently, wouldn't listen. Oh yeah, but it's like, yeah, but that might be you doing it. When somebody else is coloring it, you're costing them time because you couldn't take that, a couple minutes to actually make your lines touch. Now you're costing them time, but now if I got to pay for that person, now I got to pay them more because it took them longer to do that page. So it's simple like that. Like you got to be willing to, in this area, we don't all have the answers, and to learn from each other and being willing to learn. I mean, I'm always ears. But then there is also the time you go, okay, yeah, it's not working. But I think, we're all here to support our community as creators, as artists. There's something else Ross said here, which was about Brent Willis. I'm not sure who that is. Is putting out the Bristol anthology down here in Wellington, so anyone can send their pages to. Right. So you've got another community setting up anthologies. So you've got another person who's putting it together. Anthologies work because you get to see amazing art from all over, and just like Ryan here, right? A couple of years later, he's putting out a collection. He's putting out a comic book. He's putting out a series. You got to start somewhere, right? And a lot of people think, oh, anthology is just one of many in that thing. It's like, well, you'll be able to get someone who likes your work and will support that work when it comes out. Just like webcomics, if you're putting out something free, it's people are able to get in their faces, and you're supporting someone. Putting out an anthology costs a lot of money, right? Putting out something like this costs a lot of money to put out. So you got to balance everything. Just as like just putting out a comic book costs a lot of money to get it printed, sending it away, and all that. That's why I reckon for us to get into the Kickstarter game, get into the Indiegogo game, because if we as a country can do it, then it'll be good for us to support ourselves that way and get it out there. Now I'm going to finish off here because it's past 2 hours. Usually I try to keep it 2 hours. In finishing, I'm going to give you about 5 minutes to do the last words, as we always do. Whatever you want to say about, if you want to promo, whatever, and then we'll finish up after that.
Okay.
I think you can hear them with the 5 minutes, but
I'll give it a shot. All right. Well, okay. Well, what can I say? Well, to anyone who's interested in doing the comic book thing, I highly recommend it. It's not for everybody, but if it is for you, there really is no better way to spend your creative time. It's a sort of a monk-like devotion. That makes sense, but the payoff is wonderful, because this medium is a very undervalued and very what's the word I am struggling to find on a live stream, underrated storytelling medium. It's and it's just great. I don't believe that the best version of a story is necessarily the movie adaptation, but the book itself, the play is the thing. And one word about mediums, because I get that question all the time. Digital, whatever, it doesn't matter. It's all gonna be turned into pixels anyway. I use on this one. I use a tablet. On this one, I don't. I use a brush. So do it. Keep doing it. Practice, and you'll get there in the end. Oh, and if you have any questions about making comics, ryangreen.co.nz, send me an email. I'll answer you. There you go. And I am done. And you can just look at my lovely face.
Awesome. And you can also find them on ryangreen.co.nz.
Yep.
And that's the web address there. Shane, anything to say? Do you want to plug your book? Where can they get it?
Sure. This is my book. There. obviously, you can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Art of Evans. And yeah, support local, support Ryan, support myself, support Funtime, many other artists. So that's all I need to say. Thank you.
Awesome. All right. Hopefully you guys got the passion that we have for what we do here. And once again, I want to call out to the New Zealand comics community. We need to share and support. I don't want us to become like crabs in a bucket, trying to jump on top of each other to get ahead. There's a global market for comics out there, right? There's a global market, and I mean a global market. We're just a tiny little country with lots of creatives, but there's a global market for that dollar that we can earn for ourselves. We don't have to do it on the back of each other. We can go for our own selves to get it. We can share skills, share talents, share whatever we know, knowledge of how to get there, and we can support each other to get there. We don't have to hold each other down to get there. At the end of the day, it's your choice. It's up to you to do what you want to do with your work. How you do it, it's all yours. But there's a lot of people out here, as we talked about, who are out there trying to help. So I'll leave that with Rocco. And with Rico, what he says, which is rock on creators. And to everybody in New Zealand, thank you for joining us and watching in. You can pick this up on YouTube on our PlungeCast page on YouTube channel. Also, thank you for joining us, Ryan. Thank you for once again my co-host, Shane.
Thank you.
Always a pleasure to have him with me. Has so much more knowledge about the arts inside of comics than I do. Hopefully you guys got something from us, and also everybody around the world, wherever you are, be well, be safe. Hopefully you can see that there's a lot of independent comic creators here in New Zealand who are just as excited about what we do and creating just as much hard work and creative work to put out there to the world. And if you see the books on Indiegogo, if you want to go out to check out the website or Kickstarter or wherever, please support, because hey, we tell our stories from our heart. Only we can tell the stories that we can tell. Everybody else can tell it their way, but this is the way we tell our stories, and it becomes our story to the world. You got Chronicles of the Wasteland. You've got Digital Butterfly out. You've also got Gil, Sophie and Gil. You can pick that up from ryangreen.co.nz.
Yep.
And Art of Evans. So thank you. And Ross Payne just says, thanks, guys. And thank you, Ross. And thank you, Rika, for joining in. If you're seeing this, please share it. Share the link so people get to see it. Wherever you are on social media, thank you for joining us. Have a good week, good month. In 2 weeks, I'll have a Canadian comic book creator from Naomi Comics. Sadly, that's going to be very early, which is around about 8:30 New Zealand time, if I remember right, because it'll be 9 o'clock in Canada, New Brunswick, I think that's where it is. Hopefully you'll be able to join us, but in about 2 weeks from now on a Sunday morning at 8:30. So hopefully you'll join us then. Ka kite anō. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it, Ryan, for joining us finally, and Shane.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan.